Did it make theological sense that God would leave the pinnacle and the whole point of creation, us, to the process of evolution by natural selection of chance or accidental variation? The problem could be solved if God were actually in charge of the process of variation, either directly or indirectly causing just the right variations to appear at just the right times to be then accumulated by natural selection to form all the different species that God had in his mind in the beginning, and most notably us. As the Harvard naturalist Asa Gray suggested in his otherwise very supportive book review of The Origin, quote, "At least while the physical cause of variation is utterly unknown and mysterious, we should advise Mr. Darwin to assume in the philosophy of his hypothesis that variation has been led by God along certain beneficial lines." This suggestion coming from his supporters caused Darwin as much anguish as did outright rejection of his views. It seemed to him to raise as many theological problems as it resolved. As he replied to Gray in correspondence,
I happen to have a copy of the letter here. With respect to the theological view of the question, this is always painful to me. I'm bewildered. I had no intention to write atheistically, but I admit that I cannot see, as plainly others do, and as I should wish to do, evidence of design and beneficence on all sides of us. For instance, I cannot persuade myself that a beneficent and omnipotent God would have designedly created the ichneumonidae with the express intention of their feeding within the living bodies of caterpillars.
Darwin's referring here to parasitic wasps, the ichneumonids, which lay their eggs in the bodies of, for example, caterpillars. And then as the eggs develop into larvae, they feed themselves on the inside of the caterpillar. They eat the caterpillar from the inside out and then emerge and pupate on the outside, and the whole awful cycle starts over again. Did God have in mind parasitic wasps in the beginning and cause just the right variations to occur at just the right times to be accumulated by natural selection to get parasitic wasps? As Darwin continued,
on the other hand, I cannot anyhow be contented to view this wonderful universe, and especially the nature of man, and to conclude that everything is the result of brute force. I am inclined to look at everything as resulting from designed laws, with the details, whether good or bad, left to the working out of what we may call chance. Not that this notion at all satisfies me. I feel most deeply that the whole subject is too profound for the human intellect. A dog might as well speculate on the mind of Newton. Let each man hope and believe what he can.
Designed laws with the details left to chance. That was Darwin's conception of God's role in the creation at this time. Surely God did institute the laws of nature. Surely he did leave some things to chance. So, for instance, he surely established the laws of nature that govern lightning. But surely it was not his intention that a lightning strike would kill a good man and spare a bad man standing next to him. As Darwin continued in the same note to Gray,
certainly, I agree with you that my views are not at all necessarily atheistical. The lightning kills a man, whether a good one or a bad one, owing to the excessively complex action of natural laws. A child, who may turn out to be an idiot, is born by the action of even more complex laws, and I can see no reason why a man or other animal may not have been aboriginally produced by other laws, and that all these laws may have been expressly designed by an omniscient creator who foresaw every future event and consequence. But the more I think, the more bewildered I become, as indeed I have probably shown by this letter.
This is just one of many notes exchanged between Darwin and Gray, in which Darwin puzzles over the theological implications of his and the alternative hypotheses. But Darwin went beyond expressing his views in private. He later elaborated his views in a very public rebuke of Gray. This came in the final passage of his 2-volume work on variation in domesticated animals and plants, his most extensive investigation into the origin of new variation. In this passage, he also suggests that we make a clearer separation between the provinces of theology and natural history. This passage, again, this is the final passage in this massive work, begins,
"And here we are led to face a great difficulty, in alluding to which I am aware that I am traveling well beyond my proper province."
beyond the province of natural history. Darwin's line of reasoning here in rebuking Gray had to do with the following assumption. If God directs evolution by causing particular variations to occur at particular times, then we must suppose that this applies to evolution by artificial selection as well as by natural selection. But he continued,
"Can it be maintained that God specially ordained, for the sake of the breeder, each of the innumerable variations in our domestic animals and plants? Many of these variations being of no service to man, and not beneficial, far more often injurious to the creatures themselves. Did he ordain that the crop and tail feathers of the pigeon should vary in order that the fancier might make his grotesque pouter and fantail breeds? Did he cause the frame and mental qualities of the dog to vary, in order that a breed might be formed of indomitable ferocity, with jaws fitted to pit down the bull for man's brutal sport?"
Darwin found fantail pigeons and pouter pigeons grotesque. He couldn't imagine that God would have caused just the right variations to occur in just the right places and times, that breeders could come up with those particular varieties. He also refers in this passage to the possibility that God might have caused just the right variations to occur at just the right times and places in order that dog breeders might be able to come up with pit bulls, the whole purpose of which is to pit against a bull tethered in a circle. The bull tries to gore the dog. The dog, with its specially bred jaws, grabs onto the snout of the bull, won't let go, suffocates the bull, brings the bull down in this way. Remember in Darwin's time also that pit bull fighting is the scene of all kinds of other immoral and criminal activities, betting. These fights go on into, they profane the Sabbath, they go on into Sunday. People drink massively at pit bull fights, and they have sex at pit bull fights. Did God cause just the right variations to occur at just the right times and places that this spectacle might occur over and over again in England? As he continued,
"But if we give up the principle in one case, then no shadow of reason can be assigned for the belief that variations leading to man were intentionally and specially guided. However much we may wish it, we can hardly follow Professor Asa Gray in his belief that variation has been led along certain beneficial lines. On the other hand, an omnipotent and omniscient Creator ordains everything and foresees everything. Thus, we are brought face to face with a difficulty as insoluble as that of free will and predestination.